Hello. I have not been on for a while. I've been really, really busy. Um, and also very sad. I have here a list, and it's a long list. Here's a shorter one of things that, and I hate to even use the term our president is doing and has done. And then there's this one, which is also full of, let's say, we got here 6 pages of things. I am absolutely aghast that there are people who think that's what's going on here can be excused in any way, shape, or form. This young man that they have in custody to deport him, regardless of the fact that he's married to an American citizen, and regardless of the fact that he had a green card, and all he did was exercise his First Amendment rights, the right to free speech, the right to protest. And in all actuality, I agree with him. What happened? And I'm not anti Semitic, but I'm anti apartheid and anti genocide. And that is what the Jewish hierarchy did when they invaded Palestine. They did the same thing to the Palestinians that we did to the American Indians, and in their own country. Incidentally, President Carter also felt the same way. So I am aghast at the fact that anyone could even begin to justify this. And then we have the people in his cabinet, none of which are qualified to take over the department that they're being put in charge of. They're not that smart. They don't know that much about the subject. I mean, RFK, anti vaxxer, we have eradicated smallpox, polio, measles until these idiots get up there and say, oh no, they're terrible. Now, there may be something wrong. There may be incidents where there have been detrimental effects. I don't know that. But I would not dispute the fact that it may have happened. But overall, when you look at the statistics, we have eradicated smallpox, we have eradicated polio, we pasteurized milk so that people didn't get sick. And now RFK, or yes, that is RFK, Robert Kennedy anyway, he is advocating drinking raw milk, unpasteurized milk. I I just can't even believe there are people that are okay with this. And it makes me so sad, and it makes me very, very frightened because we have got the idiots of the world running America. You know how Hitler found all the other psychotics in Germany to do his bidding when he went after the Jewish people? Well, our president has found all the other idiots to do his bidding and make sure they do not cross him. And he said he would do that. I mean, one thing about Trump, he says what he's going to do. What amazes me is there are so many people that are stupid enough to say, oh, that's okay. We don't care if we abuse children. We don't care if millions are murdered in Ukraine so you can play the bully and side with Putin. And that was such a setup. when he had Zelensky in the White House and Vance went after him, I mean, that was such a setup. Zelensky didn't stand a chance. And they wouldn't let him speak anyway. He kept saying, let me answer that. And they wouldn't do it. And it was, I mean, we're siding with Putin. Putin invaded their country. He is murdering people, everyday people. And I will tell you this, those of you who think this is okay and voted for Trump, you are complicit in the murder of every man, woman, and child, every husband, every wife, every son, every daughter, every grandmother. You are complicit. You put this man in office knowing he was Putin's puppet, and you knew he was going to cut off aid to Ukraine. If you didn't know that, you really are stupid because he said it. If you just listen to him, get off your damn propaganda stations, watch things like MSNBC and CBS and NBC. Get away from Fox and Onan and Newsmax. They are not telling you the truth. They are Trump's puppets. And I imagine they make out very well financially. But I'm just going to, I'll take the shortest one. I'm just going to read this. This is who you guys voted for. This is what you want for your country. 64 times he is mentioned in the Epstein report. Remember Epstein, the sex trafficker who supposedly committed suicide while in prison? And if you believe that, I've got some swampland I want to sell you. 97 times he pleaded the fifth. Now, I don't have any trouble telling the truth because I haven't done stuff that I have to lie about. 34 felony convictions of that included falsifying records so he could make more money. And these convictions were he was in front of a jury. So this isn't the deep state or the government, the DOJ, or Biden going after him. This happened in New York, and he was convicted of, of 34 felonies. He has had one criminal sexual assault conviction, and following that, 26 sexual assault allegations. Now, remember what he said about you can grab him by the pussy because you're a star? I mean, does this surprise you? Or are you going to say, oh no, that couldn't have happened? Hey, he said it. Weren't you listening? He said it. It's okay. He's a star. He can do whatever he wants. And there are 26 people, women, who say he did. He's had 6 bankruptcies. And when you declare bankruptcy, you do not have to pay your contractors. And he has literally put contractors under. I mean, there was one guy that supplied pianos for one of his casinos, I guess it was. And he never got paid anything. So he had 5 draft deferments. Now, I really want to elaborate on this. This is a guy who had 5 draft deferments who attacked Zelensky in the White House on camera with a member of the Russian press nearby. The American press weren't allowed in. A member of the Russian press there, he attacked Zelensky, who's been fighting like hell for his democracy in Ukraine and for his people. And for those of you who may say, oh, well, Russia had it first, okay, let's explore that a little further. How would you feel if England started bombing us because they were here first? We were their first penal colony. Think about that. Okay. It's had 2 impeachments, 2 convicted companies, 1 fake university that was shut down. That cost him a lot of money. 1 fake charity that he stole from. So now he's barred from even having a charity. He had a 25 million fraud settlement, a 5 million sexual abuse verdict. That's the one I was telling you about. Sexual assault, actually, is not just sexual abuse. And I know I had somebody say, well, the Democrats, this, and this. Everything they stated was a consensual sexual liaison. Now, that doesn't make it right, but there's a whole lot of difference between consensual and assault. If you don't know that, look it up. The 2 million fake charity abuse judgment, 93 million sexual abuse settlements or judgments, a 400 million fraud judgment. He's the first president in history to serve a full term and increase the deficit every year he was in office. And that is directly attributable to the tax breaks for the very wealthy and corporations. First president in history to maintain a debt to the GDP ratio over 100% for his entire term. He had the highest annual budget deficit, most added to the national debt in a single term, the most new unemployment claims. Now, I have to be fair about the unemployment claims. When he left office, he had a worse employment record than Herbert Hoover when he left office. But in the case of Trump, there was a pandemic on, so you gotta take that into consideration. To be fair, largest single day point drop in the history of the Dow. First major party candidate in half a century to lose the popular vote twice, in 2016 and 2020. Longest government shutdown in history, and he did that while his own party controlled both chambers of Congress. So you can't blame anybody else here. First president in history of approval ratings to maintain a net negative approval rating for his entire term. First president to be impeached twice. First president to have a bipartisan support for his conviction after impeachment, which happened both times. I actually don't think that's true. I'd have to look that up. I haven't checked that. But I think Nixon, because at that time there were actually Republicans who didn't want a crook in office. Now they love it. Most indictments, guilty pleas, and criminal convictions of members of an administration. The only other one that came close was Reagan. That should tell you something. He's the first president to have a mugshot. Now go ahead and look that stuff up. Fact check it. I mean, and there's so much more. He mismanaged the pandemic right from the get-go. Tried to down it, called it a Democratic hoax. It ended up that nearly 500,000 Americans were killed as a result of that. He separated children from their families. That's something that's going to go down in history as akin to what what Hitler did to the Jewish people. And there's still 1,000 children that they have not been able to reunite with their parents because there were no records kept. That's a great businessman. I've got a better filing system than he does. He tear gassed peaceful protesters in Lafayette Square so he could hold a photo op holding a Bible in front of a church. A Bible he's never read, a church he never attended. He tried to block the Muslims from entering the country. part of his racism. You've heard it all. The Mexican judge, American born Mexican judge, who could not render a fair verdict because he was not American. And this man is such an ass. Trump. He had the worst job history of any president. Um, there's just so much more. Where are you people? It is so sad, so incredibly sad to find out that most of you so called Christians would have turned in the Frank family. And now they're going after our First Amendment rights with this young man from Palestine, or the Palestinian who exercises free speech. Who's next? Me? Because I'm on here telling you that Trump is an petulant, insecure little 10-year-old bully on the playground. And you've given him the power. What's wrong with you people? And you think what's happening in this Doge thing? First of all, Musk was not elected. Number one. Number two, he's not all that bright. I know everybody says, oh, he's a genius. He's not a genius. He just has enough money to buy in when other geniuses have done things. And as far as going into, and if anybody else hacked into this, our Social Security records, our Treasury records, they would be put in jail. But our president is allowing this to happen. Now, if you really want to find waste, you don't do it with 3 teenage hackers. You get people together who accountants, and you put them in and let them do a study, and then you decide where to cut. You don't just haphazardly cut the FBI, the CIA, the air traffic controllers, and be very, very careful. Our Social Security is in danger here. They've already cut millions out of Medicaid and Medicaid. So, because of your vote, because of your support for Trump, there are millions of people dying and being murdered as a result of this man's policies. And you're complicit. You're complicit in this. Your stupidity, your lack of humanity, your lack of empathy, and your abject stupidity and hypocrisy is you are complicit in these deaths. And what's so dismaying is that most of you call yourselves Christian. Man, you are the farthest thing I've ever seen from a Christian. Hitler said he was a Christian. Well, you're right falling in line with him. You're a hypocrite and you're not very bright because this man tells you who he is. He acts it out. He is a horrible person. Listen to his speeches. He spends most of his speeches talking about 2 things: how awful other people are, and he does it by name. Now, we've had people have their lives turned upside down by allegations that weren't true from uh, Trump and his cohorts, and they paid out good money. It was a Giuliano, or that isn't how you say his name, the ex-president of New York. I mean, he ended up in an awful mess because of his lies. And they were lies. Otherwise, the women would not have been able to have made that work and win a judgment against him. And he's, plus all of the members of Trump's staff that ended up in prison, and he had, let them all loose. Then he lets all the felons loose. And I know at least, the people that were attacked, the police that were attacked in the Capitol on January 6th, And another thing, guys, Nancy Pelosi did not orchestrate that. That isn't even logical. It's so stupid. It's hardly worth a mention. Except there are stupid people who believe it. I mean, why would she do that? We won that election in 2020. At least then there were enough people that were smarter than 2024, 2025. At any rate, that to make that statement is just so stupid. And there were so many people that got hurt that day. Um, and the danger to Nancy Pelosi, the danger to Mike Pence. I mean, they were chanting, hang Mike Pence. And there was a noose hanging outside the Capitol. Go, get off those damn propaganda stations and just think. You shouldn't even have, all you should have to do is look at the footage of January 6th and know what happened. But it just boggles my mind that there are people that are so stupid that they will defend it. It just boggles my mind. It's right there in front of you. And just, it's just too stupid to hardly even. It, this is all so stupid. It shouldn't even have to be addressed. But it's so scary because there are so many stupid people believing that crap. So when you tell me that you can find any way to justify what's happening to people as a result of all of this, and they're not done. You young people, wait till you have to start supporting your mother and father because they've taken Social Security away. Now they're taking Medicaid away. They've taken Medicaid down by what, 17 billion. Just people die. And I know that there are people that are saying, oh, well, they should have done with this or done that. Would you want to be the one at the hospital, standing there, turning away the old man, the old woman dying of a heart attack because they don't have insurance? And that it goes for immigrants too. Because contrary to your belief systems, immigrants pay a huge amount in taxes that they'll never see because they have, in many cases, the right to work in the United States. But because they are not citizens as such, they can never recoup those losses. They can be employed and they pay into the system, but they can never collect from the system. So I think last year they paid $54 billion in taxes. Look that up. So they pay more in taxes than Elon Musk or corporations, and they will never see a dime out of it. And what we're talking about Musk too, in his he has an he has $18 billion in government subsidies for his SpaceX and his Tesla. Now, I'm seeing that as a huge conflict of interest. That this man is, just going around with his chainsaw and doing his Nazi salutes. And he's getting all this money. Why don't we just cancel his subsidies? That 18 billion would go a long way toward Medicaid, Medicare, food stamps, what paying back Social Security, the money they've stolen out over the years, ever since Reagan put it into the general fund. Although I understand, if I fact check that the Democrats had something to do with that too. So, but moving that out of the lockbox was a really big mistake, and really has hurt us. And now they're trying to use that as an excuse. And a lot of our national debt is what we owe ourselves, what we owe Social Security from what we've stolen. So it isn't all foreign debt. And as far as the thinking that we should not help others, we did that in World War II. We appeased Hitler. We had promises. He's not going to do anything. Well, folks, we saw how that worked out. And now we're kind of in the same position. Not only do we have our own leader threatening to invade our neighbors, North and South, and Greenland, but we also are giving Putin a green light to invade any part of Europe that he wants without interference. And Russia has been invading since 1939. And they've invaded a great deal of Europe. And I think it's 2014, was it Crimea? Anyway, there was a series of just in the last couple of decades where they are invading their neighbors. And now they've got Ukraine. Well, I'll tell you what's next is going to be Poland. Seems they're always next. And then you've got our own leader threatening to invade all of our neighbors. Now think about that. That is so Hitler-esque that it isn't even funny. I mean, that's really too close to home. And now we're deporting people and some good old, I mean, that's really too close to home. And now we're deporting people and some good old uninformed Trumpster said, well, they're only deporting the criminals. That's not true. They're doing sweeps and they're deporting people who have been here for 50 years and have businesses and homes and families. And this is how Hitler started, by mass deportations. And then when finally he decided on the final solution, so that was to ship them all in cattle cars and then into the gas chambers in many cases, and if not, in deplorable, inhumane conditions, until they did kill them either by starvation or overwork or both, or shooting them or gas chambering them, whatever. But it all started with mass deportations. It all started with the propaganda of demonizing the Jewish people. We are now using the same kind of propaganda and lies to demonize the immigrants. And statistically, they commit far less crimes than Americans. And this whole fentanyl thing that none of you bothered to check, 90% of our fentanyl comes in legal points of entry by Americans, smuggled in by Americans. Now, those are the facts. Most of the immigrants coming into this country are families who are looking for a better life. And the thing that gets me about this is the same thing with the trans and the LGBT community and everything. Not one thing about them affects your life. You still eat. You still have enough food on your table. You still have a shingle on your roof. Not one thing affects your life. And you know what that makes them? None of your damn business. And you should be, as Christians, wishing them well and helping them. There are 14 verses in your holy book that say you are to be welcoming immigrants and helping to clothe and feed them and shelter them. But I guess your holy book only matters when you're going after somebody because of who they love, like a gay guy or a gay woman. Oh my goodness. When I go to bed at night, the fact that that guy loves another guy is really going to make my sleep bad. And when I get up in the morning and I take my shower and I eat my breakfast, it's going to make it terrible. My whole day is going to be terrible because somewhere down the road, there's a guy who loves a guy. God, how are you people? Mind your own damn business unless it comes to where someone is in need. And then that is your business. And you sure as hell don't sit back and condone bullying a man who's trying to save his population from murder. So I'm going to wrap this up because it's so depressing to even think about, let alone talk about it. But if just one person listens to this and fact checks what they believe, and there are reliable fact check sites, put in your search line, reliable fact check sites, and then only use those, and then use them all for one question. If there's a consensus between 3 or 4, even 2, but you can do more of the reliable fact check sites, then you got to know that that's probably the truth, regardless of what your cult leader tells you, because he lies. He lied over 30,000 times in his last administration by people who are keeping track. So he lies, guys, and you should know that. But again, if you only listen to propaganda, you might not. Um, but your morals, your intelligence, your empathy, and certainly your religion, if you profess to be a Christian, is seriously in question because you are not a Christian. You cannot support Trump and be a Christian because Trump is the antithesis of everything Jesus ever taught or stood for. And we're very close to breaking out the cattle cars. We're denying people their First Amendment rights. I mean, I just wonder how much CNN has totally gone Fox on us. I mean, they got rid of Jim Acosta, and that was because of pressure. Um, they're all pulling in their horns. The only ones is MSNBC, and in particular Rachel Maddow. And I know that's a nasty word to you, but you know what? She has a master's, a PhD in political science. Most of the pundits on Fox are college dropouts. And you can tell because you've been listening to them, you know. But Rachel Maddow works with facts and information, and she makes sure she knows what she's talking about. So anyway, I'm going to go. I'm hoping that somewhere along the line here, there are enough Americans that can stand up for what's right and moral and kind and get away from a president who has to run everyone into the ground so that he feels relevant. And he does. I mean, if you listen to his speeches, he's either praising himself. I've done the most wonderful thing. I planted the most beautiful garden. It's the best garden in the world. It's better than any garden that's ever been planted in the world, even better than the Garden of Eden, because we have sex in our garden. Now, that would be Trump. Then he'd be putting down, of course, all the farmers who ever tried to grow a garden because it wouldn't be nearly as good as the perfect garden he's going to grow. I mean, come on, you people. Don't you listen to this buffoon. Okay, I'm going to go now. You take care. And I really hope that everyone has a wonderful day. No, I don't. I hope you have the day you deserve because there are many of you who don't deserve a wonderful day. In fact, there are many of you who deserve to be in the positions that the Ukrainians are in, or the shopkeeper in New Jersey who was just deported for nothing, no reason. They just deported him because so much of America are and voted for a bigot racist. And that's what you are about immigration. You're a bigot and you're a racist, because it's the same thing with McCarthyism. McCarthy did not, there was no problem with communism in this country, but a lot of people were hurt. I mean, there were people that couldn't get jobs because of McCarthyism. But McCarthy did not have a communism problem. Hitler did not have a Jewish problem. And we Americans do not have an immigrant problem. What we do have is a bigotry and a race and a fascist problem. And unfortunately, you seem to outnumber the people that think, listen, and fact check. So I hope you have the day you deserve, and I will be back.